don't vlog ever, so I don't really know what the fuck I'm whispering, not because of ASMR purposes, but because I lost my entire goddamn voice as I was spending my weekend in the cold, like 3 degrees Celsius in New York City, in a very ridiculous and very thin outfit for a new music video. That might actually be the only professionally relevant piece of news in this entire video. So if you want like relevant life updates, that's it. You can move on. And more to the point, in 2025, my goal is to become a snob. I am already a pretty big snob. I'm really annoying to know in real life. So my personal ambition is to become fucking insufferable. So I'm here to give you a very fun list of media I consumed in the first month of 2025. And it might inspire you to either check these out or hate on me. On the very first day of the year, I went to see Romeo and Juliet, the new play on Broadway, starring Kit Connor and Rachel Zegler. And Kit Connor, he's cute, he's fine, right? Is it problematic for me to call him cute? He's like 20-year-old. I went mainly to see Rachel Zegler. She is a star. I don't even know what other word. She's phenomenal. She's the only person I would pay so much money to go specifically to see. The play used Shakespearean language, which I didn't really understand a lot of it, but like I feel like once you actually listen to it and you try to let go of your desire to understand every single word that's being said, you can get pretty much what's going on through the vibes alone. Like just let the language flow over you. I did sit next to a person who like knew the play word for word, so that was interesting because at the very famous bit of like Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo, and the balcony scene, he was muttering the whole scene to himself. I didn't mind. I thought that was very cool. Speaking of theater, I also recently went all the way to Newark to see the Ukrainian National Theater troupe. I'm not so sure what they're called. Put on a ballet of Swan Lake. Now, here's my moment to really snob out. Newark theaters are interesting. Like in Manhattan, if you show up to a ballet, a play, a musical, like anything 15 minutes late, you're not coming in. But in this Newark theater, they kind of let everyone in throughout the entire show. So at the climax, you would have people just coming in and stomping with their loud plastic bags and the hard candy wrapper. Why do you have to eat hard candy at the ballet? Eat it at home, or like unwrap it beforehand and put it in your pocket and then eat it there, but like in silence. Why? There were like phones going off and there were like people filming. It was bright as shit from all this phone screen. I'm like, oh my god. But you know what, the ballet was okay. Maybe it's because Ukraine's been at war for such a long time. I don't really know if these dancers fight. I thought Act 2, the second half of Act 3 with the Black Swan, and Act 4, which were like the pivotal parts, the important plot points, those were very good. But Act 1 and the first part of Act 3 was a mess, and I don't even know that much about ballet, but the dancers didn't really know the moves. They were like looking at each other, they were bumping into each other. You know, what the fuck do I know? The only Swan Lake I'd seen before coming to the ballet was the Barbie movie Swan Lake. So yeah, not really like a ballet connoisseur. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Moving on to books. I make an infographic every year to track what books I read that year. It's only for my own amusement, and also like graphic design is my passion. I don't really use Goodreads or Storygraph or anything like that. I know Storygraph's been recommended a lot, but I tried it and it's just like so much homework. Last year's reading list was pretty bad. So like when I'm having a bad time, I usually read shit book the same way you like eat junk food when you're on your period. So this year, maybe to manifest a better experience, I'm gonna read literary fiction. I'm gonna read New York Times best books of the year. I'm gonna read men Booker award winners, or shortlisters. Those bitches on the long list, they can suck it. First read of the year was Sleep Donation by Karen Russell. So according to the internet, I'm just gonna read you the blurb. A crisis has swept America. Hundreds of thousands have lost their ability to sleep. Enter the Slumber Corps, an organization that urges healthy dreamers to donate sleep to an insomniac. So the story follows a person who works for the Slumber Corps. There's like a lot of like interpersonal drama with this one specific donor who's like a child, an infant, and like it goes into themes of like sacrifice for the greater good, yada yada yada. I didn't like this book. I thought it was boring as shit, which is a shame because I really 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 love Karen Russell. I love Swamplandia. I thought it was brilliant, but maybe it was because I listened to this as an audiobook and I didn't really vibe with the narrator. Listening to this as an audiobook made me realize how repetitive the description is. Like there was so much exposition. It just went on and on and on and on, and there was so many like musing on life and sacrifice, and these musing are identical. So I'm like, okay, muse once, don't muse repeatedly. Or like if you have to muse a lot, have different musings. Don't tell me the same thing over and over and over and over. Maybe that was too harsh. My second book of the year was V for Vendetta. This one was a bummer. It was a bummer to read, but it was very good. I plan to watch the movie soon, but since the book is so goddamn depressing, I don't even know if I can handle it. Now, the blurb of the book goes like this. Set in an imagined future England that's given itself over to fascism, this groundbreaking story captures both the suffocating nature of life in an authoritarian police state and the redemptive power of the human spirit which rebels against it. That reveals fucking nothing. It follows a vigilante called V. It follows a lot of characters that are either spouses of people who work within the police state, the policemen who work with the police state, the girl that V rescued and later gone to have a larger role within the story. And like you can tell that it was a pretty old piece of work because it's still very hopeful. Like back then, all you need to do to have a revolution against fascism is to read a lot, and the workers need to realize the solidarity, and then you need to rebel against the police, and then you need to form a barricade, and then you need to charge. V for Vendetta is extremely dark and is extremely violent, but the hopeful spirit, the indomitable human yearning for freedom is still there. And I'm at a point where I don't believe that human yearn for freedom like that anymore. Maybe not in this day and age. Third book I read this year is Edinburgh by Alexander Chee. This one basically kicked me in the teeth and called me a bitch. It's just that sad. I had a book hangover after reading this one for a week straight. Here's the blurb. 12-year-old Fee is a shy Korean-American boy and a newly named section leader of the First Sopranos in his local boys' choir. But when Fee learns how the director treats his section leaders, he is so ashamed he says nothing of the abuse, not even when Peter, his best friend, is in line to be next. So, the director is, can I say this on YouTube? Child molester. When the director is arrested, Fee tries to forgive himself for his silence, but when Peter takes his own life, Fee blames only himself. In the years that follows, he slowly builds a new life teaching near his hometown. There he meets a young student who is the picture of Peter and is forced to confront the past he believed was gone. So those two last sentences kind of unnerved me. I do like the moral fluidity that's expressed by some of the characters, but I also like that there are characters who do hold like our general normative standards of conduct, so you don't feel like you're taking crazy pills when you're reading this and like, oh, don't do that, because there's also another character who is like, yeah, don't do that, that's like a felony. Next book I read is Interior Chinatown, and I picked up this book because I watched the show on Hulu, and it's such a good genre-bending, mind-blowing show that I watched it, and I was like, there ain't no fucking way they could make this into a book, because how would they even format it? And you know what? I was kind of right. I did like the show a lot better than the book. I feel like the show is more propelling, is more compelling. It followed more interesting arcs and the characters are more well-rounded. So the show and the book follow these characters who live inside the world of a normal procedural cop show. But the thing is, these characters are Asian characters, so they play roles like the stereotypically Chinese guy or the delivery guy or the IT guy. Yeah, so our main character like cycle through these roles in order to get to the top, which in this world is the role of Kung Fu guy. I would say that for the book, I feel like it goes more into philosophizing the identity of Asian Americans, so it loses a lot of story, and that might be perfectly fine, but I need a plot. So there was one book that I did not finish in January, which was Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao. So I know of the author, I've seen her so much on TikTok and Twitter, and I've been really curious about the book, and I finally picked it up, but the writing was not what I was hoping for. Maybe it was because it's a YA book and I don't really read YA literature. I'm just not the target audience for it. But I would say this, the premise was so interesting that I did like spend a good 2 hours looking up all the plot and spoilers and basically everything that happens within this book and the sequel, just because like, okay, reimagine Asian China with fighting robots, aliens, and a polycule. That sounds like a party. I like it. Finally, to the last book. I finished this yesterday. I spent 5 minutes after finishing it just staring into the distance. It's The Vanishing Half. This book is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's on every single reading list. It's been so popular these past few years, and I never got around to it because I read the blurb and I didn't think that I would be super interested in this because it feels too literary. You know what? I'm trying to become a snob, so I picked up this book finally, and it was a really nice surprise. The plot was way more interesting than I thought because everybody in this book has some kind of problem, usually systemic. It followed these twin sisters who are black but are light-skinned enough that they can pass as white, and their lives diverge when one of them go on to live life as a white woman and one of them go on to live life as a black woman. This was like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, so like at large it was a bad time. It's a really big premise to tackle, but I thought Bennett's execution was so good. I didn't even really care that there wasn't so much like explosive, dramatic, like earth-shaking stuff happening. All of it was pretty like character driven, which is not usually what I like, but this one went down very smoothly. 10 out of 10. And lastly, I want to show you the shows that I watched this month. First of all, I finally got around to watching Severance. Really good. Apple TV is actually not that expensive compared to other stuff, and it has good shows. So you know what, if you're tired of Netflix, cancel that shit and use that money on Apple TV. And the second show is the Afterparty. There are 2 seasons out on Apple TV. I think the second season is way better. The premise of this is each season is its own murder mystery, and this central character detective is trying to figure out who's the killer, and she's interviewing every single person, and each perspective brings you an episode that is told in like a different genre. So the reason why I like season 2 way better than season 1 is because I feel like each episode is more aesthetically loyal to the genres that they're telling. So there's like an episode of like Wes Anderson kind of aesthetic, one is like an old Hong Kong movie, one is like a TikTok documentary. I like the concept. I thought it was pretty good, but the execution, especially in season 2, is so beautiful. Like the visuals are so beautiful, and for that alone I would rate it like 8 out of 10 for season 2. Season 1 is uglier, so maybe like a 6 for effort. And that concludes the first installation of my journey on becoming a snob in 2025. I hope by the next time I see you, if I actually do bother to do this again, my voice will be back and I won't have to speak like this. Also, there's new music coming out very, very soon. I think it's real good, and the music video is kind of offensive, but in a funny way. So stick around for that. Thank you and goodbye.